Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Purch It Podcast. Joining me to myself and Justin today is Dylan, co-founder and CEO of Nebula Labs. Dylan, I've got written down here, and I've stole this from your website, that you're a passionate technologist, you're an excited app developer, and you're an enthusiastic tea drinker. First things first, what's your favorite brand of tea?
Ooh, got to say I like a tea pig.
Ooh, interesting.
Tea
Bit
pig.
off-
I've
The
never heard of that.
little string and everything on them. Proper fancy.
Tea
I like
pig.
that. I like that.
Sound like-
Unorthodox choice. It's
Quite
not like your top
quite
brand.
a curveball.
Oh, yeah, I was expecting.
I shall deliver you some, Justin, to Proto.
Fair enough. I'll drink the tea pig.
And one note I've put down here for your intro is that you're an all-round good guy, because we've known you for quite a while now, and everyone we spoke to, and we've mentioned Dylan from Nebula, and they're like, "Oh, we know Dylan, he's lovely." So there, everyone loves you, Dylan. So there you go.
Oh, thanks, Paul. I should come on these more often.
Yeah, it's like some names we mention, and people are like, then other names like yourself and a few others like, "Oh, they're really great guys," and like, well, you made a good choice there. So Dylan, let's get into like the very beginning. So when and how did your journey start?
So I guess it started back in like 2009 now, which is like 12 years ago, which is absolutely terrifying and very, very boringly, but very appropriate for this day and age. It started in my bedroom. So when I was a teenager, I was really into computers, proper kind of classic kind of geek nerd type, just really like wanting to learn more and wanting to play around with things. So I've been really into computers and really into kind of Apple things. And I got an iPhone when I was 13, got like one of the first iPhones, the one with the plastic back. And I thought, this is really cool. Let's make an app for it. That sounds really fun. Turns out it was a bit harder than I expected, but eventually kind of got there and started putting out little apps, and looking back, they're really kind of embarrassingly bad compared to what you can do these days and what you can do very easily compared to what was really hard back then. Started making apps for fun back in around sort of April, May kind of time in 2009. Put out an app that I probably made maybe it's like 5 or 10 apps that were all quite simple and all kind of did one thing. And one of them got kind of accidentally really quite popular. So I was getting these, like, if you put an app on the App Store, you get like what's known as like a download report or like a sales report every week from Apple. And I was getting figures of kind of 150,000 people a week in Italy downloading it and stuff. And it was just kind of absolutely ridiculous for kind of a 13-year-old to comprehend and think someone is actually bothering to click download and using my app. And it was really popular in Italy, in Switzerland, in loads of kind of mountainous countries, because it was like an app to tell you like how high up you were above sea level using the iPhone GPS. So that got accidentally really popular and ended up doing over 1 million downloads worldwide, which is absolutely ridiculous, kind of by accident. Total kind of, I think, right place, right time, and not many people doing apps at all back then. So I wouldn't want to try and replicate it today with such kind of blind luck. But really cool in terms of kind of like just made me want to make more and do more things, and kind of a massive like confidence boost and interest boost. So did that for a few years, made a few more apps for myself, started getting people getting in touch with me being like, "Hey, could you make me an app, please?" I don't know how many of them realized that I was like 14-year-old with hair even longer than this lockdown hair, sitting like in my bedroom, sort of after school and on weekends, putting stuff out. So yeah, made a few apps and really enjoyed it, and then decided that's kind of what I wanted to do at university. But before I got to kind of university, ended up doing a summer working for one of the startup teams on the Ignite Accelerator program. So that was based just in Newcastle back in 2014, kind of downstairs from where I'm sitting right now, actually on Carlisle Square in the city centre, in the old co-working space called Campus North. And I worked for a health and fitness startup as kind of the lead developer and first sort of tech person at the startup, developing like an iPad app and a web app as well to go with it, and some APIs and kind of infrastructure. At the age of kind of 18 before uni, it was really good fun. Basically developed what is now kind of the same concept as Peloton. So that kind of indoor virtual exercise bike and virtual reality stuff. But we were doing it kind of before Peloton was presumably even thought of. And we were doing it in a much more kind of rudimentary way where like you plugged your iPad into your existing bike, and it was a lot more kind of faffy, but it was the same concept just a lot of years ago. So quite wild to see that sort of like coming around full circle to actually being really popular now. Back when we were making it, it was fairly niche and fairly geeky. But yeah, and then from there went on to university, studied computer science at Newcastle. Had a great time, met loads of really fab people that I'm still in touch with today. Still work with some of them, still stay in touch, and kind of go for a beer or coffee with some of them when I can. And that was obviously really good academically as well in terms of learning like this is like the formal side of building software, and this is like what you should be doing versus maybe what you've been doing for the past few years in your bedroom kind of thing. And then during university, worked on quite a lot of kind of little hustles myself. So did some freelance work for some local startups and local companies, kind of building them apps and websites, and also worked on a few kind of my own ideas, tried to launch a few of my own ideas. Started a startup during uni when I was in second year with a guy from Northumbria Uni called Alex. We started a startup called Spree Tree, which was like an indoor beacon based, so like Bluetooth beacons to like check people into places, and if you got checked in you got loyalty points, so it replaced like the PayPal loyalty card. Didn't really go anywhere, but it was an amazing experience, and I learned so much kind of being like a co-founder and being that technical co-founder, and just being able to kind of like be in the driving seat of the business and the tech at the same time. It was really cool. And then came to kind of graduate in 2017 and decided to start a business kind of properly and formally, and let's do this sort of properly. Realized that I could make apps. I was quite good at making apps and quite good at kind of knowing what tech needs to go into a good app to work, and decided to kind of put together a team. So my first sort of person in that team was my co-founder, Nick. So we've been friends since kind of school, and it just sort of made sense. We'd both been studying, well, I've been studying computer science, he was studying computer network tech, and we just had kind of complementing skills, and it just sort of made sense for us to start something together. So we did, and then in the first few months, we brought someone on, initially part-time to help out as well, and just kind of scaled up from there. And now we're at 6 full-time members of the team, and various other kind of partners that we work with for other bits of the business as well, in kind of 3.5 years, which feels like absolutely no time at all, but it feels also like an absolute age. And when I'm working with obviously clients like Purch It, as sort of one of our most exciting startups, if not the most exciting startup that we're working with, and then also a lot more clients in the kind of more like enterprisey space. So we do a lot of work with the Tyne Metro and a lot of work with the North East LEP and a few of the local councils. So yeah.
Wow, what a journey. You kind of answered my second question there as well. About,
sorry, I feel like I've just talked at you straight about things that are really boring to have to repeat about myself for 5 minutes. No.
We love it. We love it.
That was great. I think the podcast is done now. Should we just end it here?
No, there's a lot more to get through.
I'm joking, man.
So what I've took from there is that life has gone. Just can you? What happened there? I got some feedback.
I'm muted.
All right. Anyway, so what I took from that, Dylan, is that it started in your bedroom and it sort of went back to your bedroom because everyone's on lockdown and working from home. And,
yeah.
And Peloton stole your idea. So Peloton, if you're watching, we need some royalties over for this guy. So how was the transition between being a student and then becoming a CEO of your own company? How was that sort of journey?
Great question. Really easy in some ways, really difficult in other ways. So really easy in the way that during uni, I was always doing stuff of my own. So I always had like a project or two on of my own, or a project or two, like maybe a client project, one of my own projects, that kind of thing. So I was always busy outside of uni. So I was always kind of decent at kind of managing my time and decent at managing like taking stuff on and working out how that kind of looked and worked. But also to the kind of responsibility to go from kind of just managing your own time to managing like a small team from pretty much day one was a really big learning curve. And like I wouldn't say I was unprepared for it. I just don't think you can be prepared for it. I think you just almost have to learn it on the job to some extent, because there's no, even if I did like a degree in business, not computing, I still wouldn't have learned the kind of things that I learned within the first 3 to 6 months probably of starting the company. So yeah, really challenging in that kind of like knowing how to manage other people's time and your own time and other people's kind of best interests along with your best interests, that kind of thing. So yeah.
You touched briefly there on the challenges, sort of learning on the job. Were there any other like standout challenges that you really had to overcome?
I think the challenge of like building a bit of a brand that's bigger than yourself. So I think when you're quite heavily involved in the business, as I'm sure like you and Justin will feel quite a lot at the minute, Carl, you're kind of the faces of the business, which is really cool, and that's brilliant. And you always want it to be the case, but you want people to know that the business is kind of bigger than yourself. So when you say to someone, "Oh, it's going to cost X amount of money to do this work," they're like, "But why?" And you're like, "Well, because I've got a business, I've got a team to feed and keep happy, and we need to be able to do the project properly. Like, we can't do it on a shoestring just because you think I'm one person," that kind of thing. So I think that like establishing a brand but without losing your touch on it is challenging as well. And I think once you've got that nailed, that kind of, it definitely makes life a bit easier, and you can put your mind a bit more at rest because you know that people are treating you as a business and as kind of a serious entity, as well as like obviously you still want to have yourself present because you want to have that human side there, and you want people to talk to you, and you want to be able to have genuine conversations with people as well. So yeah,
it's funny you mentioned clients there. So like client leap of faith, was that probably one of the bigger challenges, just getting clients to say, yes, we want to work for you, we want to give you our money?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we went into it from a really interesting approach where we've always done a lot of work with two kind of groups of clients. We've always done a lot of work with really interesting, really exciting startups, which is really fun and really, really interesting. And then we've also done work that's equally as fun and interesting, but with totally different kind of organizations. So one of our first clients was the Cobalt Business Park, which is like the UK's largest business park, like a totally different kind of client to your startup. But we tried to approach them in the same way, kind of technically, to say, look, we know what tech is, we know how tech works, we know kind of what the latest tech that you need is, and we can tell you that. But also we've got this kind of established brand that we're having to deal with. We're having to show to them that yes, we know the tech, but we're also able to deal with them in kind of business terms as well. So I think like getting your first couple of clients on board, particularly from potentially that more kind of established like sector, can be like a real challenge. And I know you guys will know that from your current venture and previous ventures, but yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Justin?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I was just gonna ask. So, what was it like from you being in your bedroom, like working on, I guess you can call it like your younger apps, to working on the types of projects that you are now? What was like? I know there's a massive difference, but it'd be good to see what it was like from developing apps in 2009 to developing apps in 2021.
Yeah, no, really, really good point. And I think the industry that we're in changes so quickly that it's almost like the processes that I was following then are so different to what you follow now anyway, that I can't really compare what I was doing then to what I was doing now, because it's a totally different ball game. And if someone's in their bedroom as a teenager now, they're going to be doing totally different things to what I was to build essentially the same end product, if that makes sense. And like the kind of loopholes that you had to jump through, and the kind of wheels that you had to reinvent yourself back then almost, just because the app economy was like the App Store wasn't even a year old when I was starting to put out apps. And now it's well over 10 years old, so billions of downloads later, and it's just an everyday thing. I remember I think I was at my grandma's or something, and she had some of her friends around, and I was talking about what I was doing when I was like 13 or 14. And I said I was working on my apps, and one of them misheard and thought I was working on my abs, because app just wasn't a term that was around then. And obviously now everyone would be like, "Oh, your app, that's great." But as then it was like such like an explanation piece almost just to even say what you were doing. So yeah, I think that's a really good question, but I feel it's so hard to compare what I was doing then to what I do now, because not only has that changed in the scale of project that I'm working on and the scale of team that I'm working with, but also like just like the sheer difference in technology to what is available now and how great things are now compared to how difficult and unnecessarily awkward they were then in some cases. So yeah.
Will you show us your abs?
Apps or abs?
I'll let you decide what you want to show.
Well, my abs from 2009 look pretty bad. My abs now look pretty bad. So take your pick.
Well, just don't take your top off, because we'll get banned from wherever we post this.
It's funny you mentioned like the apps back in 2009 and when the App Store was in its infancy, because we had apps like, do you remember that? It was just the beer glass, and you used to just turn it. You used to
the iPine, yeah. And the fake Zippo one, so you could pretend you're like in a crowd at a concert with a fake Zippo lighter, yeah.
Or the candle you could pull out when you took a date to McDonald's and all that sort of thing. A simpler time before crypto and Bitcoin and NFTs. Wow.
Maybe that was the original NFT.
Oh, that could come back and someone could sell that. You can quote me on that one. 2009 Carl, what was he doing? Candle apps and McDonald dates. So through your journey, Dylan, what's been the biggest like learning curve? What do you think is something that you learned very early and it's something that you still go by to this day?
I think like being quite selective about who you work with. So I think as a startup in a smaller company, you build a culture around yourself, and that's great because it's as long as you're aware of what you're building around yourself and your team, then like it can be really positive. But I think sometimes that can clash when you come into talking to clients or prospective clients who maybe just aren't a good fit. And I think like knowing when to walk away and knowing when to say it's just not a great fit is really important. And I think like that's something that's really difficult to learn at the start, but once you've learned it once, it's almost ingrained in you.
So what kind of what are some of your like pet peeves with clients? Or some that stand out?
I think it's normally when they invite me on their podcast. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's the worst, isn't it?
Right.
No kidding, this is absolutely great. No, this is the exact kind of relationship that you want with clients. Only where you truly are partners and you do see each other on kind of that level. I think the kind of pet peeves and the issues can be kind of almost lack of education, and that's not an issue because like as technical experts, people who are software developers want to educate clients and partners. But I think some clients are just so resilient and are just so set in their way, and they did a website once and it worked, and they don't want to accept that there might be another way of doing it or hear about your way of doing it. So I think like that, like lack of openness almost can be really challenging. And I think almost like potentially also being like too set in ways of technologies. So sometimes, particularly when talking to like potentially larger, more established organizations, you go in and you say, well, we want to use this technology for this because we know it's like one of the best and it meets these requirements. And they're like, that's really cool, but we just can't. Like, you need to choose one of these 10 technologies that we use already and kind of shoehorn your solution to fit in there. And I think that can cause so much friction. And it's really annoying because if you do end up doing that, then you know that you're not giving them the best solution. You're just kind of giving them sort of what they'll tolerate and what you'll tolerate. And it's just a bad compromise for everyone versus like someone who's more open and just wants to do kind of what's best.
Yeah, I think from our sort of perspective from working with you, it was always the advice that you give us was always top. You know what I mean? It was always in our best interests to sort of the guidance that you give us. And I think, just accepting like we're coming to like a business like you because you are experts in that field. And I just think for a business set in their ways, I think it's a bit naive not to embrace like what you're telling them. And I guess it's with a lot of smaller businesses trying to get that respect of bigger businesses, that's sort of always a clash. But yeah, I would say anyone watching this, like, just embrace who you're working with, what they're saying, because it turns out it's always the best interest.
Totally, yeah, no, appreciate you saying that, Carl. But I totally agree. Like, I think, like, you know, it's like if we're going to someone for, say, some design work or something, we're going to obviously listen to them and respect them. So if someone comes to us for some tech work, then they should do the same principle. And likewise, if a client comes to you guys at Purch It for some advertising advice and advertising consultancy and kind of digital ad space, then they should also similarly kind of trust you. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, none of us are technical, or like our co-founding team aren't very technical. I mean, I don't know if you remember the very first meeting that we had. It was more like, this is what we're trying to do. This is where we want to be. How can we make this happen? We didn't try and shoehorn or put in the stuff that, like, I don't know, like different platforms to make it better or whatever. You know, we were just like, we trusted you solely and was like, yeah, do it, you know, as long as it works. I mean, you know, my fucking sorry, shit, I need to cut this off. But my my sort of go-to phrase is, as long as it works, I'm happy. I don't care how you make it work, you know, as long as it's solving the problem that we're trying to fix, you know, that's it for me. I suppose
totally. And as long as it meets kind of your business needs as a business case, then it's fine. Yeah, exactly.
And I think the best thing is you didn't treat us like we were idiots, because we are idiots, but you didn't treat us that way.
True.
So, Dylan, I've seen your face everywhere online. You're always doing a talk or you're winning some award or something.
I was going to say, hopefully for good reasons.
And there was that one article. Never mind.
10 serial killers in Newcastle. Oh, crap.
That's cereal as in like Cocoa Pops and Rice Krispies, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Dylan, what's been some of your proudest moments?
So I think like within like 2 years of starting the business, we would won the Dynamite Award for kind of new business of the year, which is like a Northeast wide thing. And that was absolutely amazing. And like, you know, we put in for it, but we didn't expect to win it. And just to win it was absolutely cool. And like hugely reassuring, and a huge like vote of confidence almost. So I think in terms of like awards and that kind of thing, I think that was absolutely amazing. And then I think like in terms of actual like sheer business, within just over 6 months of starting the company, we'd kind of competitively tendered and pitched for and won a contract with Nexus to deliver like smart ticketing to the metro system, which then turned into kind of a much kind of larger long-term thing at the end of kind of a prototype phase. But even to get that prototype phase within kind of 6 months of starting the company was really cool, and like a huge boost to like confidence, and to be like, yeah, we can actually do this, and we do know what we're talking about. Like, it's not just us telling ourselves that we know what we're talking about and that everyone must agree. It was like actually this is, you know, quite cool. And obviously be humble normally, but do celebrate this one. I think it's really cool. So
yeah, definitely. So where do you keep these awards? Are they fancy paperweights, or are they pride of place somewhere?
So I'm in the office today. I'm just by myself, and there's loads of construction work going on down below, so hopefully you can't hear too much of it. But there's loads of them behind me. So yeah,
lovely. We need to get some awards, Justin. I don't think my
you have to come over and see them next month or month after or something when you're allowed.
I don't think my third place swimming trophy will look well in the office. We need some bigger ones.
We'll get some Dundees.
No, that's brilliant.
I think you need an Oscar for those Zoom backgrounds, Justin.
Well, my background, you know,
not this one, but some of them.
Oh, like I can't do it. We're recording.
I mean, we like to be trendy with them, so we had that Zoom cat for a while.
Oh, I love that one.
I'm not a cat, I promise.
Do I have any?
Special guest.
Oh my God, Donald.
That's really creepy.
Sorry.
We do not support the actions of that man. I'm just making that clear. So Dylan, we're flying through our questions, and it's been a great podcast so far. So let's talk about sort of the future. And where do you see yourself, and where do you see Nebula in, say, 5-10 years time?
Yeah, cool. No, really good question. I think in terms of kind of stuff that we're doing, we don't want to scale up too much. So I think sometimes scaling up works amazingly if you've got like a really kind of repeatable rinse and repeat product, for example. But I feel with a more project based business, we want to be more like personally invested in everything that we do. So we're pretty hands on with each project that we take on at the minute, which we really enjoy. So I think like scaling up, but in a way that doesn't lose that. So scaling up to a point almost. So I think scaling up the business a bit, and then also looking at kind of also what can we do like internally ourselves, like potentially what kind of products could we develop ourselves, which might be more kind of behind the scenes technical products than kind of consumer facing app products or anything. But could we like develop some technical products ourselves internally whilst also developing kind of consumer facing products for our clients? And then could they potentially benefit by using our internal products to kind of speed up bits of their app or do certain bits without complicating their app, that kind of thing? I think that would be really cool. So yeah, really keen to see like where that could go. And I think we've got a really good split at the moment between kind of doing work with startups and work with large organizations in a really startup focused kind of way, in a really kind of agile way. So want to keep on like building on that really, and just make sure that like we don't become almost a victim of scaling up too much and become too kind of potentially too like managed out of doing that or something. So yeah.
What about yourself? Any personal goals and ambitions?
Not massively. I think just to keep on doing work that I find interesting, which I think is actually sounds really easy, but it's actually really hard to keep fresh over the course of like, you know, how quickly years can go by sometimes when you're kind of involved in so many things. So I think just keeping the mixture there and making sure that like we're always taking on stuff in new sectors as well as doing stuff in kind of the sectors that we became accustomed to. So we're doing a lot in health and fitness and a lot in transport at the moment, which is really cool, but don't want to kind of stay there forever. Want to make sure that we're experts in those, but also doing new, more kind of different things just to kind of keep that mix up.
Do you have a dream sector that you would like to do a project in?
Wow, that's such a good question. I'm not really sure at the moment. That's really cool because I think like I like doing a lot of apps that involve kind of location-based technology. So I find that really interesting. And we are kind of looking at a little bit of internal stuff there, potentially for later in the year about like internal products that we could do around the location sector. So I find that really, really interesting. And then in terms of kind of like other bits of technology, I feel like almost like that behind the scenes tech. So like I was saying, like stuff that you might use to build your app rather than what is your app. I find that quite cool. So I think that's like a bit of an interesting sector. And then in terms of dream sector, probably just like personal dream stuff, probably something in photography. Just because I quite like taking photos, and that's just something I do at weekends and kind of outside of work. And I think just doing something in photography that's really cool would be really fun.
No, I'm a fan of your Instagram feed. It's very nice photos of the area. Justin, anything to add?
Yeah, I've just got like 3 questions there, and the last one you can answer or you don't have to answer it. First one is what's the funnest project you've worked on? Second, what's the most interesting project that you've worked on? And third one, who's your favorite client ever? Tread lightly.
Can I just say Purch It for all 3, and then is that us sorted?
That's it. Let's end it there. Let's end the podcast there. He said it.
So
I'm joking.
You sell out, Dylan.
Most interesting absolutely has to be something which I can't quite believe we did. So back in 2018, the Newcastle in the Northeast hosted the Great Exhibition of the North. And we were involved installing, building the electronics, so designing and building the electronics, developing the software, and then installing and maintaining 18 steam whistles.
Which were installed. Steam whistles?
Yeah, steam whistles, so like a train whistle. And there was 18 of them installed as part of an art installation around the city walls of Newcastle. So from like the quayside, all on the quayside, and then up towards like almost like Science Central, and like Newcastle Uni, and then round to kind of here, like Cardiol Square sort of area, in like a big sort of circle that took like the old Newcastle City walls, and they all had to fire in a sequence. So they would start off at, I think, the City Library and work in like a sequence at 1 p.m. every day as like a clock firing, but it would go sort of beep, 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 beep around the wall, around like all 18 of them. And doing the timings and the electronics to make that happen was unbelievably complicated. And then having to like work out how they would stay online. So we had to build we used the Raspberry Pi computer, so like the mini computer that's made in the UK. We built some software on top of that to kind of install it at each site and installing these computers at each site. Found like Wi-Fi nearby or hooked up 4G to each of them. And then had to build like a server to control it all and to like keep the time in sync with the atomic clock, that sort of thing. And then also do like an on-demand firing system. So for example, at the launch, we could just pull up our phone and say, fire the whistle. And for the whole summer, we could do that, which was absolutely not used at any times that it shouldn't have been, because that would be really irresponsible. Yeah, especially when one was at the Quayside Wetherspoon pub, that would have been really bad to set that off, say on a Saturday afternoon after a few drinks. But it was essentially like, it was really, really challenging to get them all to go off at the right time in the right sequence, and then also to basically allow any of them to be set off at the right time, but also make sure none of them went off at the wrong time, because these things were live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if our program failed and got the times inverted or something, they might end up going off at 1 a.m. instead of 1 p.m., that kind of thing, next to obviously like a block of flats or something. So I had to be really careful. Involved a hell of a lot of testing. So I was involved in kind of the electronics and the design and the software, and then my co-founder Nick took over for the installation and spent about 2 weeks of his life on rooftops installing them with the artists that we did it with. But that was, I think, the most interesting in terms of just totally out there project. So we did it with an artist from Durham called Steve Messam, and he's from Teesside kind of area, and he got the place that made the first ever train whistle for Stephenson's Rocket down in Darlington, to cast his 18 whistles, and then brought them up to Newcastle, and then we installed them, and it was just an absolutely wild time, and really, really interesting, and unlike anything else I've worked on and probably will ever work on. And then the whole festival had to be kicked off at 1 p.m. on Thursday, the 22nd of June or something. And the kickoff was the steam whistle firing to like launch the whole festival on the BBC and stuff. So we got on like the documentary about it afterwards and things. But yeah, no, it's good fun.
Oh, that's excellent. I mean, as long as you didn't give anyone any heart attacks.
The wonders of technology. 100 years ago, that'll just be loads of people just whistling.
That might have been easier if we'd just done that and just went outside at 1 p.m. every day. So I think that's the most interesting project. Most enjoyable, I think. Honestly, I can't say. I really enjoy enjoy so many of them. There's so few projects that I would say.
Dylan, it's not more like how much fun you had making it. It's more like how much. I guess it's more like to do with your team, like how much bonding, how much fun you guys spent doing it instead of the work itself, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, I get what you mean there. I get what you mean. So I think we've done a couple of projects where pretty much the whole team's been involved really closely. So one of them was a really nice kind of like social benefit project as well. So we did some work with South Tyneside Council a couple of years ago, for children and adults with learning disabilities, potentially in care or with their kind of support assistance. And pretty much the whole team was involved in that. And that was a really nice project, in terms of I think definitely brought the team together with a really obvious social benefit kind of goal, of just making these people's lives better and making the services that these people use better. So I think that was really lovely, and that like definitely like you say, kind of got the team together around a common goal and brought everyone like really like enthusiastically on the same mission, which I think can be hard to do because a lot of projects that we work on are quite like distinct, so they'll require very specific technologies. But this one required quite a lot of technology, so it required pretty much all the team. So that was really interesting, and like a really nice sort of purpose. So yeah,
That sounds very wholesome.
And then favorite.
You don't have to answer that, Dylan. We can just invite you to the Christmas party, got you drunk.
All of them.
What vegan food for you?
All of them. I love working. I love working with you guys. And you know, there's a handful of others that are really good fun as well. But yeah, that's a diplomatic answer.
I feel like Justin was trying to get his ego stroked there. I had a little feeling there.
I just wanted to know if Dylan enjoyed working with us. You know what I mean?
Well, he's talking to us now, so that's a good thing.
And he hasn't logged off yet. No internet issues as of yet.
Brilliant. Well, I've got 2 more questions for you, Dylan.
Yeah, cool.
One is it's a bit of an out there one. What's one thing that nobody knows about you that you would like to share to the world?
Dylan's got abs.
Ooh,
we've got him on the ropes here.
I honestly don't know. I think I'm quite introverted, but maybe I just do tell everyone everything. Maybe that's one thing. I don't really mention it very often, but I'm actually vegan.
Really?
I didn't know that, Dylan.
I honestly, I can't think of anything. Sorry, that's really anticlimactic.
No, actually, it's good you mentioned that because I quite enjoyed our chat about you being vegan because I was a bit naive to it. Really, I didn't really understand the whole vegan
the
lifestyle.
whole sort of
I was a bit blind in that aspect. So thank you for that. It was a good education on the Christmas party, socially distant Christmas party. If you're listening, Boris.
No, I'm glad it was. I'm glad it was useful. Glad it was interesting. And yeah, I can't think. Maybe I just tweet or Instagram too much. I can't think of anything that I don't really divulge. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't know you were vegan up until you told me. You know, it was like when I think I was inviting you to the Christmas party, and I was like, "What foods do you want?" Because I want to make sure you had something that you would eat. Then you were like, "Yeah, I'm vegan," and sort of broke my heart a little bit. And then
you were far too nice. You got me like vegan kettle chips and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, whilst you guys during the Christmas party, if anyone's listening, right, this is what happened. Everyone was having fun, drinking, eating. Whilst I was in the kitchen, fucking changing what was in the oven every half an hour, every 10 minutes, just to make sure everyone's fed. And if you go to the office right now, every single one of those things are still there.
You're a good host. But can I add an extra layer to that as well? It's when we found out that you were vegan. We spent the whole afternoon looking at like Morrison's Tesco's Asda.
We were as well, weren't we? I was like, what the fuck do we get? I was like, I think I was like, should we get him some carrots, some cucumbers?
A Rudolph carrot.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was a good get together, and when we're allowed to, I think we should definitely do it again.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. So where can people? Oh, sorry, Justin. What?
I was just going to say.
You some non-vegan sausage rolls at the next one.
Nice. Just buy us a steak from Rio. Oh my god.
Yeah, we can't take Dylan to Rio, can we?
I can probably have the salad.
No, that wouldn't be nice for you, though, will it? It's like we're just eating cows, and you're eating what the cows eat.
I'll come along and watch.
Yeah, we could do that.
Wow, what a night. So lastly, Dylan, where can people find you online? Where can people find Nebula?
Cool. So you can find me at I'm DJ McKee on Twitter and Instagram. and I'm Dylan.ninja on the web. And Nebula, you can find at Nebula Lab on Twitter and Instagram, and at nebulalabs.co.uk. That's probably a good thing that not many people know. Actually, the DJ McKee thing, my middle name is James, so it is actually my initials. It isn't a really tragic, like, 12-year-old me thing. So just to clarify, yeah, not a DJ. So there's a little thing that you might not have known, or you might have known, yeah.
Well, I have to scratch off my last question, which was, what kind of genre of music do you mix? But that one out.
I'm just hiding the decks behind me with my chair.
Brilliant stuff. Anything else, Justin?
That's it for me. I thoroughly enjoyed this podcast.
It's been really fun.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's been really, really fun. Thanks so much for having me, guys. I hope I've been interesting. I feel like I've just waffled on quite a bit, but
no, this is what the podcast is about, giving people the opportunity just to ramble. We love it. So yeah, guys, make sure to check out Dylan and Nebula on Twitter, LinkedIn, all the good ones. Yeah. Make sure you like and share this podcast. From myself, Justin, and Dylan, this has been the Purch It Podcast, and thank you very much.